Hey everybody, welcome back to Treasures Galore. Hey, I want to do a quick video about why I think the treasure is hidden in Montana. But first, I'd like to discuss a few things, kind of about who I am and what my beliefs are. I'm what you consider a book purist. I believe that all the answers that you need are in the book. Forrest has told us that if you are really serious about finding this treasure, I have some advice for you. Get the book and read the book, just like as a memoir. And then read the poem over and over, even memorizing the poem. Then go back and read my book slowly, looking for anything that might catch up in your brain. So that's what I've been doing. I put the most stock in The Thrill of the Chase, but I also put a lot of stock in Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While. I mentioned this earlier in my other video, but Forrest has once said that the clues are not deliberately placed to aid the seeker. And people think that if there's something in the book that just stands out, that it's not a clue, or a hint, I should say, because it's deliberate. But I want to clarify that comment. I believe that he meant deliberately placed means that each clue are not in order. They're kind of out of order, spread out through, and he didn't organize them to aid the seeker. However, there are deliberate hints in there to help you with the clues. Forrest has also said that all the information you need is in the poem. And I completely 100% agree with that. The 9 clues that, if followed precisely, they will lead you to the treasure. And that's what you need. You need the directions to the chest. However, if you do not use the books to help you decipher those, then I have no idea how you'd be able to find the treasure. I absolutely have no idea. In Once Upon a While, in the foreword written by Douglas Preston, Forrest told him that the clues were so hard to decipher that he wouldn't be surprised if it took 900 years to decode them. Now, to me, that is saying that you need the books to help you with finding this chest. That you're not going to go out there, just find a warm river and follow it in the canyon down. I don't think it's that simple. But today I want to talk about what state I think it is in and why I believe that according to the books. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there and quotes and stuff that will point us to Montana, I believe. You know, with the recent Cody video saying his heart has always been there. The chapter in The Thrill of the Chase of In Love with Yellowstone. But I want to talk about a few chapters that are in Once Upon a While and Too Far to Walk. And these chapters are Treasures Galore and Montana Golden. Okay? In Too Far to Walk, page 200, he only talks about Montana in this. He talks over a few pages about the mountains and how wonderful they are and stuff. But listen to this, and I quote, "Every Montana evening, when I smashed a mosquito on my arm, 15 of his relatives came to the funeral." So he's talking about Montana in this chapter called Treasures Galore. But then let's go to Once Upon a While in the chapter called Montana Golden. He talks about trying to catch golden trout at Avalanche Lake, which was a fairy tale spot for him. But here's the kicker. At the end of the chapter, he writes, "The second night, there was no smoke, but every time she slapped a mosquito, all of its relatives came to the funeral." So he uses the same line. So this may mean that the mosquitoes are really bad in Montana. Or he's trying to point you to these 2 chapters called Treasures Galore and Montana Golden. I'll let you guys decide if you guys think that is important or not. So the next chapter I want to talk about is chapter 39. It's called Heading North and Too Far to Walk. So he talks about going north, and he said his destination was not something he had to worry about for at least 600 miles. Now, in an interview, when he's talking about this, he says 600 to 700 miles. So he talks about getting in his plane, and there was no greater freedom. and he would get in there and open the hangar doors by himself, as I've went alone in there, and he would fly. He doesn't mention New Mexico. He mentions Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana. But since he's flying, these would be nautical miles. So if you go as the crow flies 600 to 700 miles, that would put you in the middle of Wyoming, close to the Yellowstone border and on. Now, I think that was a deliberate telling you that that is where you need to start looking. But also, at the end of this chapter, he talks about, and let me quote, "In Cody, Wyoming, I visited the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. A few years later, I became a trustee of that great museum. I'm bragging when I say that everyone should go there on their way to Yellowstone, which is just 54 miles west." He's bragging that everyone should go to Yellowstone. Now, I know that could mean that, he's bragging because he's a trustee at the Buffalo Bill Museum. He gave the cabin, the Sharp cabin, to them, and that everyone should go there. But I take that as he's bragging that he's telling everyone that you need to go to Yellowstone. Okay, so once again, these are all my opinions. And there's a lot more stuff that I could talk about, like the preface, when he mentions that he went to the Madison River, and a few miles from West Yellowstone, he fished down to Baker's Hole. He loved the place, right? But he says, the river experience cemented my connection to that special country. So we know that this place is special to him. On the dust jacket, it's the Madison River. And he always talks about how he loves this place. So in my eyes, if we were to simplify, that means that we need to go to this place and start looking at every single possibility on where it could be. We are all missing something, and I think that's pretty evident. But I firmly believe that Montana is the place you need to search. So the next thing I want to talk about is the reoccurring theme of heading north and then heading south. So, like the chapter, heading north, he has no greater freedom than to head north, right? But also, in the chapter In the Thrill of the Chase, Tea with Olga. So Olga had cancer, like Forrest, and wanted him to head north to Taos Mountain to scatter her ashes. And there's two pictures in that chapter of him right by his plane that said heading north and then south for home. Then there's the chapter 33 in Too Far to Walk, talking about Woofy and Winann. So he says that a few days later, he was returning to New Mexico from Montana. So again, with the heading north and then heading south. In this one, he specifically mentions Montana. There are a few other instances of talking about heading north, which are very interesting to me. I know I'm kind of all over the place with this, but there's also, in Once Upon a While, he talks about the 7th Cavalry, which is also mentioned in The Thrill of the Chase, which I thought was interesting. But he's talking about the 7th Cavalry in the Yellowstone campaign, and he tells us of Evan Connell. And he says, both his memory and his golden words are two treasures I will never hide. And so, if you don't know about, well, obviously the Yellowstone campaign, it's in Yellowstone. But don't you think it's interesting that he uses the words golden and treasures that I will never hide when he's talking about Montana? Which brings us back to the two chapters in Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While, Montana Golden and Treasures Galore. Both are about Montana. That's about all I have for this video. There's a few other things like the postmark of Donnie Joe and him going out to look for Lewis and Clark. The postmark is somewhere in Montana. And the postmark in Golden Moor is somewhere north of Santa Fe. There's another thing about Chapter 16, Cactus Cowboys. He has a picture of his words that he wrote in that chapter looking for Lewis and Clark the whole back page of that is that chapter, along with the next page, 75, of the same page again. So to me, he's just bringing us back to Montana in all of this, because that's where it takes place, right outside of Hebgen Lake. But those are just my thoughts on why the treasure is hidden in Montana. I mean, he says his heart is there. He talks about it. He talks about treasures galore and Montana golden and all these other things I've talked about in the video. However, he never talks about Colorado. He talks about New Mexico. That's where he made his career and his money. But he doesn't talk about his heart being there in the mountains. And that's what he told us. It's in the mountains somewhere north of Santa Fe. Now, I know some people will say, oh, well, it's just a local thing in the mountains north of Santa Fe. Well, that doesn't mean that it couldn't be in Montana, because that mountain range stretches all the way to the Canadian border. But once again, these are all my opinions, and I could be right or wrong. You know, we have no idea. Until that treasure chest is found, we have no idea. But in my eye, Forrest Fenn is pointing us towards Montana with the things that I've talked about. And if you disagree, give me a thumbs down, or, you know, write me a message, write a comment, and tell me why you think I'm wrong. And point me in stuff that Forrest has said, or, you know, things in the book that would make you think that the treasure is hidden somewhere else. Well, that's it for this video. I can't wait to put out some more content for you guys, and just let me know what you guys thought. Alright, thanks.